When I first signed up for the summer naval training camp, I hadn't exactly planned on cross-dressing. I'd planned on sailing. I'd planned on doing push-ups until my arms fell off. I'd planned on the strict routine of sunrise training drills, cold showers, and rank exercises where officers yelled commands until we were too tired to care. The idea was simple. Endure the grueling schedule for a few months, and by the time college came around, I'd have some serious skills, not to mention the kind of toughness you can't get from a video game controller. I'd probably be a bit taller, too, by the end of it. What I didn't plan on, however, was the giant, screaming mistake I made on the forms. I have to take full responsibility for this one. The application was long, but I'd breezed through it, eager to secure my spot. My pen slipped, and my brain did too, apparently, because instead of marking M for male, I ticked F for female. A simple error. Harmless. And probably one I would have caught if I hadn't forgotten to double-check everything before mailing it off in my haste. I didn't realize the mix-up until the acceptance email showed up a month later, and even then, it was a line I missed in my excitement. The first hint was my assignment to Bravo Company, which didn't mean anything to me at the time. The letter didn't specify that it was girls only. So, I packed my bags, reassured my mom I'd survive without a daily home-cooked meal, and off I went, absolutely clueless to my fate. That first morning at camp was already a little strange, but not alarmingly so. I noticed that I didn't have any bunkmates, which I chalked up to an overbooking mix-up. Then, out of nowhere, a girl with a frizzy blonde ponytail and a chipper expression knocked on my door. "You're the new recruit?" she asked, squinting suspiciously. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, wondering if there was a rule about socializing that I hadn't been briefed on. "All right," she said, smiling. "I'm Ava, and I'm kind of in charge of making sure everyone here knows the ropes." She scanned me up and down before her face twisted slightly, as if I'd done something wrong. "Sorry," she said, turning red. "They said we'd be getting a new girl, but I wasn't expecting her to be so." She stopped mid-sentence, seeming to realize she was about to say something offensive. "You know, tall." "Oh, it's fine," I laughed, trying to be polite. "I get that a lot." Ava stared at me for a second longer, and I began to feel uneasy. But before I could say anything else, she clapped her hands together and gestured for me to follow her. "Let's head to the mess hall. And don't worry, you'll fit in perfectly." The mess hall was packed with girls, all of them in regulation attire. Khaki shorts, white polo shirts with a navy emblem, and short haircuts. The closest I could compare them to were the athletic girls at my high school, who looked like they'd be just as comfortable lifting weights as they were wearing a sundress. I figured I could blend in easily enough, even though something about the whole situation felt off. When Ava told me to fall in line, I did as I was told, keeping my mouth shut as the officer, Commander Brooks, started the morning briefing. She was tall and stern, the kind of woman who probably went to sleep dreaming of push-ups. Her gaze was intimidating as she addressed us, speaking about teamwork, discipline, and the importance of sisterhood. She kept using that word, and my brain kept snagging on it. "Let's show our new recruit the ropes, ladies," Brooks said, looking right at me with an unreadable expression. Ava nudged me forward, but I was too busy processing the last few seconds to pay attention. Sisterhood? I glanced around at the room full of girls and, for the first time, noticed there wasn't a single other guy in the mess hall. Not even a single short haircut in sight, apart from mine. That was when it hit me. I'd signed up for a girls-only team. I was officially the only guy in an all-girls Navy training camp. Now, here's the thing. This kind of situation might sound comical in hindsight, but at that moment, my mind was whirling. I tried to figure out if there was any way I could go up to Commander Brooks and explain myself, get reassigned to a co-ed team, and go back to the military summer camp experience I'd envisioned. But one look at Commander Brooks and her no-nonsense expression told me that wasn't happening. The only other option was to keep my head down, try to blend in, and hope I could survive a few weeks without blowing my cover. After all, it was only a month or two. I could manage, right? "Hey, new girl." Someone called. It was a brunette with sharp eyes and an intense stare. "What's your name?" It's Sam," I replied, flinching a little at the attention. "Oh, Sam, like Samantha?" she asked, grinning. "Why, yeah," I said, cursing myself for fumbling on such a simple answer. I'd have to be more careful if I wanted to avoid drawing attention. The brunette, whose name I'd later learn was Cassie, just shrugged and went back to her breakfast. I let out a quiet breath of relief. If they could just buy this one story, maybe, just maybe, I could survive this. Over the next few days, I fell into a rhythm. The training was intense, just as I'd expected, and thankfully, it kept everyone too tired to care about each other's personal lives. Mornings started with drills, followed by exercises, and then long hours on the water. Ava turned out to be a genuinely nice girl, though a bit nosy. She was always there, pushing me to improve, asking questions about my background, and trying to get me to open up. "Where did you learn to sail, Samantha?" she asked one day, pulling on her life jacket as we prepared for a morning sail. "Oh, just around," I mumbled, avoiding her gaze as I clumsily adjusted my own life jacket. She laughed. "You're so vague, but that's okay. You'll get there." Then she patted my shoulder, and I tried not to flinch. My disguise was holding up, but barely. The girls on the team were polite and generally didn't push too hard, but every now and then, one of them would make an offhand comment that made me feel like a deer in the headlights. For instance, I learned fast that I had to be very careful about shower schedules and changing times, which quickly turned into a full-blown strategy. By the end of the first week, I'd established a system. Wake up early, grab a shower before anyone else, stay quiet, and be the first to bed. And it was working until the third Monday. That morning, Ava burst into my room, apparently assuming I was still asleep, and tossed a uniform onto my bed. "We're doing a dress uniform check," she chirped. "Skirts and blouses, everyone. Mandatory." Now, I don't know how familiar you are with military dress uniforms, but here's a crash course. They're not known for their flexibility. There's the female version, with a skirt and blouse, and then there's the male version, which is more along the lines of slacks and a fitted jacket. There was no male version in sight. "Oh, great," I muttered, staring at the skirt in horror. "That's nice." Ava looked at me with a sympathetic smile. "I know, right? I thought it would be more exciting too, but you get used to it." She left before I could object, leaving me with the skirt and a sinking feeling in my stomach. There was no way out of this, no argument I could make without blowing my cover. So, reluctantly, I slipped into the uniform, hoping I could hide in the back and avoid Commander Brooks' inspection. The uniform fit snugly, and walking in the skirt felt as unnatural as anything I'd ever done. As I made my way down to lineup, I noticed a few girls giving me curious glances. I kept my head down, feeling my cheeks flush with embarrassment, but tried to act casual. It was all going fine, until I found myself at the front of the line, staring directly at Commander Brooks. "Everyone present and accounted for?" she asked, her gaze sweeping the line of recruits. Her eyes stopped on me, narrowing slightly as if she detected something off. "You're Samantha, right?" she asked, her tone clipped. "Why, yes, ma'am," I replied, trying not to sound too nervous. She looked me up and down, her expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, she nodded. "Good. I expect you to keep up, Samantha." Then she moved on, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. In some ways, the rest of camp went smoother after that day. The girls seemed to accept me a bit more, maybe because I'd endured the uniform inspection without making a scene. Ava and the others started, including me in their conversations, and I began to feel less like an imposter and more like a part of the team. We spent hours out on the water, sailing and competing in races against other teams. I grew more comfortable in the skirt, even finding a rhythm to it when sailing, although I had to remind myself not to let it fly up in the wind. I learned how to tie knots and maneuver the sails, and soon enough, I was even taking the lead in races, guiding my team with enthusiasm. That sense of teamwork and camaraderie turned out to be intoxicating, and for the first time, I felt a sense of belonging I hadn't expected. The challenges of being the only guy in an all-girls team were gradually fading away as we all bonded over our shared experiences and battles against the waves. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you, and mine came a week later. I was on deck, balancing on the edge of our sailboat, when I caught sight of the competition's yacht. It was larger, gliding smoothly across the water. I tried to refocus, leading my team through the race when suddenly, I felt a familiar sense of unease washing over me. That was when I heard it. A loud splash. I whipped around to see Cassie, who had slipped off the side and was flailing in the water. My heart dropped as I raced to the side of the boat. "Cassie," I shouted, leaning over the edge, suddenly fully aware of the gravity of the situation. "Grab my hand." She reached out, eyes wide with panic. I pulled with all my strength, but as soon as I did, my feet lost their grip. I felt the sailboat sway, tipping dangerously. In one swift motion, I fell into the water. I surfaced, gasping for air, and grabbed Cassie by the arm. "Get a hold of me," I yelled as I began pulling her back toward the boat. Just then, a pair of hands reached down from above and grabbed Cassie, pulling her up and out of the water. I turned to see Ava's worried face staring back at me. "Samantha," she shouted, her eyes wide with alarm. "Hang on. We'll get you out." As they pulled me out of the water, the whole situation began to feel surreal. I was drenched, clinging to the side of the boat as I gasped for breath, and suddenly everyone was shouting, scrambling to check if everyone was okay. Cassie was coughing up water, but otherwise fine. I let out a sigh of relief, but I was still shivering and very much aware of the skirt that had clung uncomfortably to my legs. "Are you all right?" Ava asked, looking me over. "I think so," I muttered, my heart racing. I didn't mean to fall in. Cassie, recovering quickly, gave me a wide-eyed smile. "You saved me," she exclaimed, beaming with gratitude. "I owe you one." I shrugged it off, trying to laugh it off, but my thoughts raced. What if this was how everyone discovered the truth? What if they saw me as a guy instead of as one of them? The rest of the day was a blur. After getting back to shore, I stripped off the wet clothes and threw on a dry t-shirt, but I could feel their eyes on me. No one said anything, but the tension hung thick in the air. That evening, we gathered for dinner, and I sat with Ava and Cassie, trying to maintain normalcy as we ate and joked about the day. But the easy camaraderie had shifted into something different. The air buzzed with unspoken questions. As the night wore on, I could feel my resolve cracking. I decided I had to tell them. It was better than hiding forever, and besides, if they truly accepted me as one of their own, then maybe I wouldn't have to worry about it any longer. "Can I say something?" I blurted out, catching their attention. "Of course," Ava said, bright-eyed and eager. Okay," I started, feeling my heart race. "There's something I need to tell you all. It's about me." The room went silent as everyone turned to me, their faces expectant. "I'm not really." But then the door swung open, and in strode Commander Brooks. The air in the room shifted once again, the tension snapping back to military decorum. "Ladies," she said, voice steady, "this is a training camp. We need to stay focused." She glanced at me, and for a moment, I thought she'd read my mind. "I expect you all to keep the standards high." Ava nodded, clearly eager to impress, while Cassie shot me an encouraging smile. "Don't worry," she whispered. "We've got your back." After dinner, I was mentally exhausted. I retreated to my room, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on me. I sat on my bed and stared at the wall, wrestling with the fear of being discovered versus the desire for acceptance. Suddenly, a knock on my door pulled me from my thoughts. It was Ava again, looking a bit more serious this time. "Can I come in?" she asked, and I nodded, feeling a flicker of nervousness. "Listen," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "About what you were going to say earlier." "I just want to explain myself," I said, fumbling over my words. "This whole situation, I never meant to mislead anyone, It's okay," she interrupted softly, giving me a reassuring look. "You don't have to explain anything if you don't want to. You're one of us now, and that's all that matters." Her words caught me off guard. I'd expected judgment or confusion, but her warmth made me feel seen. "I really appreciate that," I said, my heart swelling. I didn't know how to fit in at first." Ava smiled. "You've been doing great, Samantha. Seriously. We're all learning together, and we've got your back." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thank you, Ava. That means a lot. After that conversation, things changed. The next day at training, I felt lighter, more like myself. The girls started calling me Sam more often, and the awkwardness faded. I began to see the genuine camaraderie that had blossomed among us all. As the weeks passed, my confidence grew. The girls taught me everything about sailing, teamwork, and even how to navigate the subtle dynamics of the camp. We laughed together, fought through exhaustion, and celebrated small victories on the water. One afternoon, while taking a break on the boat, I found myself sitting beside Cassie as the sun dipped low on the horizon. She turned to me, her expression serious. "You know, it's really cool to have you here," she said, her voice steady. "I didn't know what to expect when they brought you on, but you've really become part of the team." I felt a warmth in my chest. "Thanks, Cassie. That really means a lot." She smiled, the kind of smile that felt genuine and sincere. "I just wanted to say that I think you're doing amazing. I'm really glad you're here." For a moment, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the acceptance that surrounded me. It was surreal, and I felt a flicker of hope for what I could become. As summer began to wind down, it was time for the big race, a final competition against the other teams, where we'd put everything we'd learned to the test. The anticipation in the air was electric as we prepared, and the morning of the race dawned clear and bright. Standing on the deck, I felt a mixture of excitement and nerves bubbling inside me. This was it, the culmination of all our hard work, and I was determined to give it my all. The race began, and as we sailed, I felt an adrenaline rush unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. We fought against the wind and waves, working as one seamless unit. The calls from Ava and the cheers from my teammates blended into a symphony of determination. In those moments, I forgot all about my identity crisis, about being the only guy on a girls' team. I was just Sam, and I was part of something larger than myself. When we crossed the finish line, the exhilaration was palpable. We had won. As cheers erupted around us, I couldn't help but feel a rush of gratitude.
I was truly a part of this team.
I felt accepted for who I was, regardless of the skirts and blouses I wore. In the end, the summer transformed me in ways I never could have imagined. I learned resilience, teamwork, and, most importantly, the power of embracing who you are, even when things don't go as planned. When I returned home, I carried with me not only memories of sailing and races, but also the bonds I'd formed with my teammates. They were more than just girls in uniforms. They were sisters in every sense of the word. As for the cross-dressing part, I learned that clothes don't define you. It's the spirit within that truly matters. And through all the challenges, I found my own identity, one that embraced the fluidity of who I could be, in or out of a skirt. The experience taught me that sometimes, when life throws you a curveball, it can lead to unexpected adventures and opportunities for growth. I had arrived at the camp unsure of myself and left with a newfound sense of confidence and acceptance. Weeks passed after I returned home, and I kept in touch with Ava and Cassie. Our shared memories of the summer solidified a bond that I knew would last. We texted regularly, sharing stories about our day-to-day lives, and I even made plans to visit them. One sunny Saturday afternoon, I met with Cassie in a local park. As we sat on a bench, reminiscing about the camp and laughing over inside jokes, I couldn't help but marvel at how much I had changed. Cassie's laughter was infectious, and as we shared stories, I felt more connected to her than ever. "Remember that time you almost fell overboard?" she teased, nudging me playfully. "I thought you were going to take the entire boat with you." I laughed, recalling the embarrassing moment when I'd been too eager to steer and nearly toppled into the water. "Yeah, but I saved you," I shot back, sticking my tongue out at her. Cassie's expression turned serious for a moment. "You know, I really admire you for being brave enough to join the team. I can't imagine how hard that must have been at first." "Thanks," I replied, a sense of warmth washing over me. It was tough, but it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. We continued to talk about our lives, school, friends, and plans for the future, when Cassie suddenly shifted the conversation. "So, have you thought about what you want to do next summer? Are you going back to the camps?" I hesitated, pondering the question. Part of me wanted to return, to sail with the girls again, and strengthen those bonds. But another part of me was hesitant. The idea of navigating the complex feelings of being back in that space was daunting. I'm not sure yet, I admitted. I think it depends on how I feel about it closer to the time. But I'd definitely miss you guys if I didn't go back. Cassie smiled brightly. Well, just know that you're always welcome with us. And if you do come back, I promise we'll have even more fun than before. Her words filled me with warmth and reassurance. I realized that I didn't have to figure everything out right now. Life was about exploring, and I could take my time deciding my next steps. As the afternoon wore on, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. I had gained so much from my experience at camp, and no matter where life took me next, I would carry those lessons and friendships with me. The school year rolled in, and with it came the usual excitement and anxiety. The hallways buzzed with students catching up after summer vacation, and I found myself navigating new friendships while holding on to the ones I had made over the summer. Ava, Cassie, and I created a group chat, sharing memes, jokes, and motivation for schoolwork. Whenever I felt overwhelmed by exams or the pressures of teenage life, a message from them would brighten my day. They reminded me that I had people who cared about me, people who had seen me at my best and worst, and who accepted me for exactly who I was. As winter approached, I received an invitation to join Ava and Cassie for a weekend sailing trip at a lake cabin they had rented. My heart raced with excitement. I'd never been on a weekend getaway like that before. When the weekend finally arrived, I packed my bags, full of anticipation. I arrived at the cabin, greeted by the familiar warmth of my friends and the beauty of the lake glistening under the sun. We spent the days sailing, laughing, and enjoying each other's company, just like we had over the summer. The sense of freedom I had felt on the water returned, as did the laughter and joy of camaraderie. One evening, we gathered around a fire pit, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. Cassie turned to me, her face illuminated by the flickering flames. Sam, I want to thank you for being such an amazing friend. You really brought a unique energy to the team, and it wouldn't have been the same without you. Yeah, Ava chimed in, nodding enthusiastically. You helped us push our limits and have fun doing it. You made us better. I felt a rush of warmth and gratitude. Thank you, both of you. I couldn't have asked for better friends. You've shown me the importance of acceptance and support, and I'm forever grateful. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the love of my friends, I felt complete. The journey had transformed me in ways I couldn't have anticipated, and I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. As spring rolled in and summer approached once more, I decided to return to the camp. This time, I felt confident, ready to embrace my journey and everything that came with it. I wanted to take what I had learned and share it with new members of the team, welcoming them with open arms just as I had been welcomed. On the first day of camp, standing on the dock and looking out at the shimmering water, I felt a surge of excitement and belonging. I saw familiar faces, including Ava and Cassie, and we ran to each other, embracing tightly. It was as if no time had passed, and yet everything had changed. Ready for another incredible summer? Ava asked, her eyes sparkling. Absolutely, I replied, feeling my heart swell. As we set out on our first sail of the season, the wind in our hair and the sun on our faces, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. I realized that this was more than just sailing. It was about friendship, acceptance, and the courage to be myself. No longer did I feel like an outsider. I was a proud member of the team, sailing in skirts and conquering the waves. Together, we would navigate the adventures ahead, and I was ready to embrace every moment. Thank you so much for watching till now. It means the world to have you here. This community is all about empowering each other and celebrating the incredible journeys of everyone on their path to living authentically. If you're ever feeling lost or alone, remember you have a whole family here for you. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and let's keep inspiring each other, sending you all the love and strength in the world. Until next time, live your life by your rules.